In today's video, I'll be proposing that elements from the biblical narrative were inserted by a later redactor into the Book of Enoch, specifically the first section of it, which is called the Book of the Watchers. It is the consensus that Enoch 6 through 11 is basically an expansion of similar elements found in Genesis 6 through 9. I'm going to break from this consensus slightly and propose that Enoch 6 through 11 did not draw from Genesis, but that other parts of Enoch did. The Book of the Watchers in Enoch has several redactional layers. If you haven't already, be sure to check out my video on the compositional history of the Book of the Watchers. What I'm proposing is that both Genesis and the Book of Enoch drew from two other sources for their text. One source was the oral tradition about the Watchers, and the other was a text about Enoch's journey. One of the earliest layers in Enoch, shown in lavender here, combined both of those sources into the basic Enochian narrative we know today. There are two places in the Genesis narrative that draw from these sources as well. The first is Genesis 5:24, which says, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. This was drawn from an early text of Enoch's journey. Check out my video, What Happened to Enoch, to learn more about why I think the biblical narrative is closer to the original ending of Enoch than the Book of Enoch itself. In Genesis 6, it talks about the sons of God taking human wives. This is drawing from the oral tradition of the Watchers, although slightly modified to fit the biblical redactor's agenda. The Book of Enoch does draw some elements from Genesis, but only in its final layer, shown in orange here. The author of that layer took what Enoch saw on his journey and used angels as a propaganda device to reinterpret the meaning of what Enoch saw. This is another topic that I explain further in my video, What Happened to Enoch. During those reinterpretations of what Enoch saw, the author would add in elements from the Genesis narrative. And the blue here is the original narrative of Enoch's journey. In the orange, the author uses the angel Raphael to reinterpret things and adds in the part about Cain and Abel. In another example, the blue layer does talk about a tree of knowledge, although it's not qualified with good and evil. In the orange layer, the author once again uses Raphael to reinterpret what Enoch saw and puts it in line with the biblical narrative by making an allusion to Adam and Eve. If you want to learn the original narrative of Adam and Eve, check out my video, The Oral Tradition Behind the Garden of Eden Story. After seeing biblical elements injected into the orange layer's reinterpretations, I wondered if all the biblical references in the Book of the Watchers could be extracted without disrupting the narrative. And the answer to that is yes. One example is when Uriel is dispatched to tell Lamech to warn Noah. Nicholsburg points out that this element presents some difficulties in the context of the story, for we have not yet heard of a wicked humanity to which Noah is the righteous exception. We see that the section starts out with the earlier lavender layer saying that the Most High is speaking. The orange layer switches this to its preferred title for God, saying that it is the Holy and Great One speaking. At this point, Lamech and Noah are inserted before the green layer talks about Azazel. Another example is when the orange layer inserts text into a poem. We see part of that poem in red here. The orange layer once again uses its preferred title, Holy Great One, as well as inserting a reference to Sinai. If the orange layer is removed, then the red layer forms a nice antithetical parallelism of earth and heaven. Finally, another example is the insertion of the time of Jared into the earlier lavender layer about the Watchers. The only reference to the biblical narrative that's not part of the orange layer is Azazel. Be sure to check out my video on Azazel and Samjaza to learn more. If you want to see my source attributions for the entire Book of the Watchers text, I'll link to it in the description. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe.